I made it.
A producer's job is never done. So now we got to get all those people that were off to come back on again. So
yeah, we got to get Julie a new.
I just did. I sent her a new invite.
Got it. Do you know what was wrong? What'd you do?
Scheduled the live event, and for some reason, Julie got in and you didn't. So I don't know if Jim. And there's one person watching, so we're still safe. Now 2 people back.
You're going to send Jim a new one, right?
Yeah, I'll do that right now. So you people that are watching, we're watching it live. Compose.
Not bad. Listen, this is the dangers of doing live streams.
And she's back.
Beautiful.
I just sent Jim one, and ta-da!
Yay!
I did it.
We did it.
I did it.
Wow.
Awesome.
Did you go to Did you work in the media department at the high school, Scott?
No. I should have, but back in those days, media wasn't the cool thing to do.
No.
Well, look at them today.
That's right.
Look at them today. Right.
That's right. So Julie, welcome. Sorry about all the technical difficulties.
That's okay. That's all right. Thanks for having me. I wanted to come on board. A lot of the stuff we're doing for the candidates, the forums and whatnot, we have such a short minute of time to introduce ourselves and talk about, how we feel about certain issues and things we want to work on. And I just wanted to kind of come on and have a conversation, because that's sort of where I do best.
and I think that's probably, given how many times I've heard what you've had to say, a lot of people have heard what you had to say. This is probably going to be one you've seen probably a bunch of these, so you could probably talk us through what we're going to ask anyway, right? So I think, like the normal procedure, give us take whatever time you need to tell us why you're running, and head off any questions you don't want to have too much of an in-depth conversation about.
All right. So I'm running for re-election. I was voted onto the school committee in March of 2020. And as you know, the entire world was turned upside down just a couple weeks later. When I joined, I had done so because I wanted to make a difference. My oldest daughter had just started the high school, and I had a lot of questions and wanted to understand where our money was going, and what programs were, there were programs that had previously been offered that weren't being offered. And, I think the transition from middle school to high school is such a challenging transition for many. And I wanted to understand the resources that were available. And I just started to dig in, and it was like peeling back an onion, and I wanted to get more involved. And then very quickly, I was submerged in COVID hell, and we were making decisions about whether children were going to be learning remotely, hybridly, or in person, and it wasn't easy at all. It's not been easy. I think being on the school committee is challenging. It's not necessarily what you think it would be. You really have to be a self-starter. You have to seek out information. You have to do your own research. You have to put people together. But at the end of the day, I enjoy it, and I know that it can make a difference. So that's why I'm here. And I'm ready to start moving forward. I want to put COVID in the past. I want to start, acting proactively instead of reactively. Unfortunately, it keeps rearing its ugly head in many different ways, as we learned today. So, it's challenging to navigate, and we're definitely past the point of saying that kids are resilient. I'm so tired of hearing that. I want to get to the point where we're not saying kids are resilient. We're saying kids are living their best lives.
So to your point, Julie, about what we learned today, it is unfortunate, but now it's January of 22 when they might get their masks off here in the great state of Massachusetts.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was disappointing. Thanks for the download. And just for the listeners and the viewers that'll see this that don't know, Julie was a very strong advocate for the children And Scott, you know this better than anybody on this show. When we get into the conversations about my kids, actually, Julie, you know this too, about any kids these days, I am not easily patient. So I'm trying real hard right now to keep the temperature down
Yeah.
because I don't, you know, this.
Don't get triggered.
No, I can't. Like happy place,
Yeah.
happy. So yeah, so we're
Yeah.
glad that you're here and doing that. You know, any surprises for you you know, other than the COVID thing? I know that's a
Yeah.
huge surprise, but any other surprises or disappointments or things you'd like to share about your first experiences on the school committee?
No, I think it's been a really wonderful opportunity to get to know different people that I may not have had, contact with before. I think what's unique about the school committee and is it's made up of 7 people with very different opinions and viewpoints, and that's democracy. I've really gotten to know our superintendent Lisa, and I think she does a really great job. The town's lucky to have her. And it's been a really interesting and different experience. I'll say that. I think it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. The school committee has three jobs. One is to hire and fire the superintendent. The second is to approve the budget, and the third is to set policies that make our children's educations better. We don't have any say over what happens at the high school, the middle school, the Cummings, or the Fort Banks. Those buildings are managed by their principals under the guidance of our superintendent. We don't make decisions about staff and student issues. Again, that's not our territory. There are opportunities to, overturn a superintendent's decision, but there's a whole policy and procedure in place for that also. So I sort of knew that going in, but you think you can influence more areas than you really can. And I've been lucky enough to be able to, talk to the different principals and, and athletic directors and drama teachers. And, and so it's been nice. It's been a nice opportunity to get to know people in ways that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Do you have any for the coming if reelected? Do you have any programs, thoughts, ideas, agenda items, things you want to see get done in that school system to improve the educational experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different things that would be amazing to do. I think bringing back foreign language at the middle school level would be very important. I think that this is a common thread amongst many of us. It was cut, I believe, in 2019 because of budget, and they put in a social emotional learning track instead, which isn't not needed at the middle school level. But they were able to leverage existing staff to run that versus having to hire outside. Another program, and I don't actually have the details on why it's been discontinued, but I'd love to get more information on it, is medical careers at the high school. I think it's important to add a differentiated array of class offerings for students at the high school that, they may feel engaged with from a career perspective, be it medical careers or, we have child growth and development, but expanding upon that program, maybe offering more opportunities for other languages beyond Spanish. When I was in school, we had Latin, Italian, Spanish, French. So I think adding to the foreign language department would be fantastic. I think right now I think our biggest challenge right now at the lower grade school levels is filling in the learning gaps that were left behind from COVID, and not in a way that makes kids feel like they're behind. I think and we're not further behind than anyone else in the state. We got our MCAS scores in this house, and the front page of the document stated that they realize the state realizes that there's work that needs to be done because these kids missed out on in-person learning for a year and a half, most of them. And that can't be made up in a month, but also kids shouldn't be made to feel like they're behind. So how can we continue to move forward without going backwards and fill in the holes, So that I think is super important. And I think before we talk about adding in any, new programs and that sort of thing, we need to make sure our kids are okay, because I think from a mental health perspective, I think a lot of children are reeling from the effects of COVID in ways that we can't see. And it's resulting in different behaviors and, challenges and stresses now that we're back into school full swing. And I think one of the other candidates said this, and unless you can take care of the mental well-being of students, you can't expect them to soar academically, So I think we have a lot of work to do in terms of getting our kids prepared for the future.
I feel like on that front, though, on the mental health front, insofar as we can help them, right? Like, and I think it's just keeping them in school, keeping them in a classroom. Candidly, I think masks have an impact, maybe on the subconscious. I'll get past it, but I do think there's some impact there too.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that too. I'd like to come back to that, but I think. We've been lucky. We've been able to add some resources at the high school. We've added an additional adjustment counselor where, we've added staff, at all grade levels really to help with this, because we recognize it as a problem. And I know that it's, not a challenge, because the kids that left aren't the same kids that came back, and I know kids that were in wonderful households in a perfect situation and struggled. So I can only imagine how children who were in less than an ideal household are doing, so.
I experienced it down here. My stepdaughter was a junior last year, and she excellent student. COVID didn't bother her at all. Her grades didn't suffer. She actually did a little better.
Yep.
And her friend, one of her best friends, went the total opposite.
Yeah.
She just bombed. Totally bombed. She would come over here, they would work together, but she just couldn't get it. She's a better in-class student than an in-house student, Yep. And so I saw the spectrum right there in front of me for the whole school year. And that poor girl, her friend, she suffered from that.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. Every kid is different too. I mean, even my own children, I had two kids that I thought were going to handle things differently, and they actually handled things opposite of how I thought it was going to go. So, it's interesting.
So Hannah Belcher just messaged in, do all students meet with adjustment counselors or mental health supports, or is it their choice? Good question. I was thinking the same thing, Hannah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, our teachers have eyes on our children all day long, and I know that there's recommendations made, and adjustment counselors will reach out proactively based on recommendations, and children will go to our adjustment counselors, and parents will call and ask, can my child meet with an adjustment counselor? But I don't want to say that it's taboo, but I think some children are still still may feel a little intimidated by that, or maybe slightly uncomfortable asking for help themselves, So I like I said, I think we have, but we do have classes every day at K through 5 levels, select classes every day to sort of help with social and emotional learning. So those classes are taking place at lower levels. But as far as the high schoolers go, I know that they, it's sort of on a as needed basis or as requested.
So Julie, you've seen some of these interviews. The question I always ask, and it's a fair one to ask everybody. And I served, so I know that there is no money.
Yes.
How are you going to fund these things?
So, some of what things, for example, like we have
it's a pretty open question.
Yeah. What things, Todd? Pick a few.
How about we lost, so they canceled. The only language he had was Spanish, and they canceled part of it, right? We still have some Spanish somewhere, don't we? Right? It's just not in the middle
school. At the high school. Yep.
Yeah. So we went backwards there. So let's talk about language, because that's, what is a couple of it's actually gonna be more than a couple of teachers, because you want to have at least 2, 3 languages, right?
Yeah.
What's that
Well,
cost, and how do you pay for it?
yeah. So I think, we, our overall, we're the largest employers in the town. Our overall budget is around, $22.8 million. Our salaries are about 18.8, and our expenses are about 3.9. So, we, I think, again, the first thing we really need to do is focus on our recovery from COVID, and we'll get COVID funds for that. We'll be able to get funding from the state to support the social and emotional well-being of our students, to help fill in the learning gaps, and to, get these kids, back whole, back to where they should be. So let's take that chunk aside and say that's, let's use the COVID money for what it's earmarked for.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When does that money come?
And when does it come?
Yeah, by the time it gets there, out the door goes a whole class, right? And the class that's coming up behind them have already had a year or so to kind of get back in the rhythm, because that was a big disruption in the rhythm of their life.
Yep.
School is part of their whole rhythm. It's a major part.
Yeah.
And there was disruption. So that class is gone. The money comes in. These kids are already getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
Well,
so
the whole mask thing is a different story, but
yeah, we'll come back to that.
yeah,
I'm out.
please don't. Please don't. He's done it twice.
I know.
You don't want 3 times.
No.
So when does the money come? That's my question. Not
So
that
the money's
you know,
here now.
but
The money, I don't know the specifics around, we get it in January, but the money comes, the money's here now, and some of it is for 2 years. We know it's not going to run out, because we're going to be dealing with the post-COVID problems for years to come.
Okay.
So, yeah. So as far, again, I think before we can talk about funding other programs, we need to focus on the challenges that we have right now, and that's really the recovery and the building out of our children.
Well, I agree with you 1,000% on that front. Unfortunately, you're walking into a situation right now where it's a contract year, and
Yep.
you know how that goes. There's not going to be an acceptance of not negotiating. There's not going to be any acceptance of zeros, and it's going to compound. It's a 1%, 2%, 3% is not just a 1%, 2%. You know what I mean? It compounds.
Yeah.
And it goes on in perpetuity.
Right.
So
So the way, we submit, we review 2 budgets every year. We review a level set budget or a level services budget, which is, exactly what we have now. How can we fund the same programs that for next year? And level services doesn't mean same dollar amount, by the way. Our level services
more.
budget, our level services budget, could go up $100,000 based on the different programs that we fund today and what we're going to need to fund those students next year. And let's not forget also that our student population is growing as well. We're up to about 1,906 students. So, and then the other budget we work on is the is the needs-based budget. So how much more money?
List.
Yeah, the wish list. And that's submitted as well. And then we take a look at what's on our wish list. Is this a foreign language student, an extra, foreign language teacher, extra history teacher, whatever those needs might be. And then we prioritize, we work with the superintendent and we prioritize, the needs based on what we feel is, the biggest priority for the community. And so, I think when we look at heading into a negotiations year with the teachers, I think there's other creative ways to negotiate instead of, money. There's other things, there's professional development, there's other opportunities. And I don't think, negotiations always has to come down to dollars. There's other ways. And like I said, we'll work with the super and we'll work with the teachers, and we'll get somewhere that's acceptable for all. We have to, teachers are besides our children, are our best asset, and retention is important.
Well, I was a union steward for 18 years in the largest federal employee union in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand negotiations. And I also, I understand very well that there's always a middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on how each side comes into the negotiations.
Yeah, for
If
sure.
one comes in swinging the bat, what do you think the other one is going to do?
Yeah.
There's always a middle ground. And
Yep.
there has to be give and take in big negotiations like that.
Yeah, you have to enter the negotiations in good faith. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Understanding that you can't have everything. And this isn't like a lawsuit where they come in asking high and they'll settle low. And that's old hat. But yeah, negotiating these things are very sensitive issues.
Yep.
And it's also is based on who's doing the negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if that person is confrontational and an angry union person,
Yeah.
well, then good luck.
Well, I
Good luck.
don't think we're going to have that. I really don't. And, you know, like I said, I think we're going to explore all, you know, creative ways to get to where we need to be.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a question here on the screen from Hannah. Do we want to answer that now or do you?
Yeah, that is Hannah. It's not going to fit. I'm going to put it on there. And it's not going to fit.
Friend of the show, Hannah.
Yes.
I read it and I completely agree. So Hannah asked, based on brain science and the linguistics principle of the critical learning theory, starting language learning pre-puberty is exponentially better for students and makes it much easier. Sorry, that just bounced down. Easier to learn. Eventually, I think it's important to look into foreign language exposure earlier. And I completely agree. I know when I was younger, I oddly, we took French starting, I think, in the 4th grade. But yes, I completely agree.
Right.
I'm a big proponent of foreign languages as early as we can possibly fit it in, you know?
I think that was a very long way of just saying, can't we put foreign language into earlier in their education?
I think it's got to be a priority. And I think of you know, and let's not also forget too, you know, academics and test scores aren't the only thing that makes a well-rounded student. You know, I think
exactly.
we have to look at the co-curricular activities and different things. And, you know, we haven't had a band program in some time. And again, I know a lot of people are talking about that, but it's because parents want it back. And again, I think there's creative ways to fund something like that.
I remember growing up, the band was the band. It was kind of like, yeah, they're in the band. It's a different group of people, and it wasn't, you know, just like the AV people. They're just a different group. And then when I came back, I went in the mill. I graduated. I worked. I went to college. I went in the military. I came back, and I heard the band was gone, and I was as my whole life was like, oh, it's only the band, but they were good. But
no,
when it was gone, I was shocked.
No, we had marching band. We had
color guard.
I think we had color guard. Yeah.
Yes, we did have color guard.
Yep.
We had
Yeah.
We did, and we had. So I went to University of Massachusetts Amherst, which had an amazing. Yeah, that's right, you did too. I knew that. I think they had an amazing band. I don't know if that's still one of their pride and joys, but when I went to school there, lacrosse and band were the things, and then of course basketball. They went to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
That was, but the band and some, you know, kids get scholarship money for that, and I'm all for that.
It's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. I think, and I think, you know, what happens is with a small student body like we have, you know, you can only offer so many programs because you end up not having enough kids to participate in any of them, you know, and you see it with sports too sometimes, you know, like in the spring we have lacrosse and we have track and we have baseball, and all of those are awesome to have, and we should have all of that. But when you start thinking about adding other programs, we have to think about how many kids we have and how we can possibly actually, you know, gain enough, you know, signups and attendance to make a program in the first place. But as far as band goes, you know, in my house, we grew up learning how to, you know, it was mandatory that we had to take a musical instrument for a couple of years in my house growing up. And, you know, and then I actually stopped taking it because I didn't like band, but that's just me. I was afraid of the band guy, that the conductor didn't work out, and, you know, it's fine. But a couple of years ago, we had a wonderful band program. They performed in the new auditorium. It was a large group of kids too. I think it's really important that we figure out a way to make that happen.
What about lifting the tax on the poor, aka user fees?
Honestly, Todd, I haven't given a lot of thought to that. I think I just haven't. I can give more thought to it and come back with a better educated answer on that. It would be really great if we didn't have to charge for things, but there's a reason why we do. So,
well, yeah. So I will say, the thing about user fees is just some information that is factually accurate. When they're lower, we actually collect more dollars than when they're higher, because when they're higher, less people can afford them. We talked about this last night with Suzanne in terms of the free and reduced folks not signing up because they don't want to identify,
Yeah.
And look, I spent this last night. I can relate. I've had embarrassing moments in my life too, but I look back on them now and I say, you know what do I got to be ashamed of? I lived it. I survived it. And I moved the station up in life, on my own. Point being, I don't know. I feel like sports and other activities, it's not just sports, are sometimes it's the only thing some of these kids have.
Yeah, no,
And
I agree. And
we
I
need
would
to find a way to make it more accessible without.
Yeah, but to that point too, I can't imagine that we turn children away on a basis of that they can't pay the activity fee.
Well, that's something that honestly, if you think about it bigger picture, it sucks when you have to turn that one away.
I don't know
got
that.
to pay.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I don't know. I guess I hadn't really thought about that too much.
Yeah.
Did you by chance get that questionnaire that was sent out?
I did get the questionnaire. Yeah, I did.
Okay, and you chose not to.
I did. I've really, really tried throughout this process, and just to go back on the activity fees for 1 second, I just want to make it clear that we despite the fact that there is an activity fee, we would never turn a child away. We don't turn kids away on a basis of not being able to afford the activity fee. I just want to be clear on that. So back to the survey. The challenge, or I should say, the way I've approached my campaign, and I just want to be clear, like, campaigning is tough business. Like, I didn't have to campaign when I joined the school committee the first time, because I applied for an open seat and was voted in by the town council and the school committee. And, I don't really like campaigning. It's not fun for me, if I'm being fair. But that being said, I like talking to people. I like this. I like conversations. I like going out and conversing. The forum stuff is tough. And it's tough to prepare properly when you have a full-time job and kids and running around. But anyway, that's that. I don't need to complain about that. But, I really tried to be fair, and I really tried to focus on participating in events that I feel are impartial, and they're going to be fair to me. And I was very clear when the survey was brought up initially that I was not comfortable with the format. I was not comfortable sharing my answers with a third party that wasn't a legitimate media outlet or a legitimate organization. And I wasn't comfortable with the answers being pushed out in the NICE discussion group. It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel good in my gut. And so I had thought about answering the questions and pushing them out myself directly. But I don't know, I just wasn't comfortable with the content, or I felt that there was a lack of transparency in the group that was trying to push it out. And it just didn't give me a good feeling. So I went with my gut.
And you did the right thing, as far as I think I can speak for Todd. You did the right thing, because that wasn't good. Now, that's the Winthrop NICE discussion group.
That's
the Facebook group.
Yeah,
the Facebook group. I know it is, but that's the name of it, Winthrop NICE.
Well, there's a couple. There's like the Winthrop. So I believe the conversation started on Winthrop NICE discussion group, but I believe the survey results were pushed out on a couple of different discussion groups. It doesn't really matter now. At the end of the day, it's out there. It just
they weren't very nice to the people that didn't fill out.
Well, part of the problem, that was unfortunate, because I was pretty upfront from the start. But I think one of the challenges I've had with campaigning, and, when you don't identify as a conservative and you don't identify as a progressive, you tend to get you get it from all angles, sort of people want to put you in a box. And I don't like to be put in a box. So I just, I'm an independent thinker. I like to look at things from, my own perspective and research things on my own and come to my own conclusions without outside influence. I like to say I shut out the crowd noise.
Yeah, I think one of the comments in that one of those threads, I'm not in any of those groups. So people send me stuff from those groups. One of them was, I guess that they don't mean it. They don't need the votes. So I'm going to vote for Suzanne Leonard and Lane Petrie because they filled out their questionnaire, which I think is a detriment, because if those people are backing those two, then there's something definitely up there, because they are liberal progressives, no doubt about it, and they're pushing an agenda and they want their people in, and that's what they're going to do.
And that's fine. At the end of the day, when I was at the Republican Forum, I don't even know, was it last week or the week before? I stood up with 5 other women who were all pretty remarkable in their own ways. They're all very smart and impressive. So, I feel proud to stand in a group of women that are, trying to make a difference here. So
I found it amazing that it's all women running. No men. No, I'm serious. I looked at it. I was like, why is there no men running for this?
You got some mad mamas.
Interesting. It was just an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's the mama bears out there.
The mama bears are out there.
That's
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like that. Like my brother served on his kid's private school board down in Florida. And when he found out when I was running for Winthrop, he's like, wait, you got to like campaign and stuff. He's like, it's, you're to your point, Julie, it's just too political. It should be more. It's unfortunate we can't change it. It is this way because we have to deal with a publicly funded budget, and we have to defend the budget, and you need to have elected people to do so.
Yeah, for sure.
And unfortunately, it's going to be that way. There's not much you can do about it.
We just had somebody. They messaged in, don't waste time on this topic. Julie has a lot to share relative to her views rather than this survey issue, in my opinion. Well, your opinion is worth something. But we got to keep it straight. We got to keep it equal. If you were watching, we've asked all the people that came on the same questions. So if you don't like the question and you think it's a waste of time, well, that's on you. But we're trying to keep it across the board, because we've had, 4 candidates come on? Hannah. So if we didn't ask Julie, what does that look like? So you got to understand where we're coming from.
I actually appreciate you asking me why I didn't participate, because, I did take some guff on that from social media, and I do think, every candidate has a right to push out their messaging and share their voice in the way that they feel most comfortable. And just because I didn't feel comfortable with the format, I feel 100% comfortable answering the questions. So that's the difference right there. So
maybe that Facebook user has a question they want to share with us. They can ask Julie right here, right now, that we might be missing.
Yeah, they seem to know you. They said Julie has a lot to share relative to her views, rather than
buses. What about buses? What about
there you go. Let's bring busing.
Loop.
Yay, busing.
Can I share a funny story with you guys about the loop? So, obviously my 2 children went through the loop. I was there for 6 years, but this one time, my youngest, I think she must have been in 1st grade, and I was on a business trip in Germany, and I got home earlier than I thought, and I was so excited because I wanted to go surprise Josie and pick her up at school. And I get to the loop. I didn't bother looking at my gas tank or my gas gauge or anything like that. I ran out of gas in the loop. Yes, at pickup. I shut down the whole loop. I shut down the whole loop.
You were that lady.
I was that lady.
She's that lady.
So I find, so
Her.
Miss Pearson is out directing traffic as she always does. And I went up to her and I had my glasses on and I was crying, tears running down my face because I was so embarrassed, so horrified. And I just picture poor Josie. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I ran out of gas. She looks at me, she grabbed me by the arm. She goes, Mrs. Barry, did anybody get hurt? And I said, no. She goes, don't worry about it. I go, okay.
There you go.
I crawl away, with my tail between my legs. Probably one of the most humiliating moments of my life. But anyway, buses. So, buses are expensive. And
Are you wait, I'm sorry. Are you talking about contracting them or running them as a district or both?
Both, to contract and run them as a district. Just a rough estimate, it for one bus would be about $72,000 a year. And, unfortunately, we can't, right now, we have 52% of our students who are qualifying for free or reduced lunches. So we can't charge those folks. We also need to consider, from an equity perspective, that we would need to provide buses for every school. Well,
is that, and I'm out curiously asking, is that just because it feels right, or is there some rule somewhere that we missed?
No,
we didn't
but I mean,
the high school week because they didn't need it.
No, maybe not. I took a bus from the high school I took a bus to the high school when I was in the high school. So we've had buses for the high school in the past.
Yeah. Well, and we have to provide from the point, we have to give transportation.
Right. If you're 2 miles away from any school, you do have to. Yep. And so we have 17 children, 17 children that we transport because of this. And it's the law that we transport them because they're 2.1 miles away from their school doors. So and as far as we're a public school, we need to provide equitable transportation for all students. We need to provide equitable education for all students. We need to provide equitable technology for all students. So there is a conversation around equity when we talk about buses that we need to address there as well. That being said, how do we fund? How do we fund? And does it take priority? And the other thing too is, is it possible for other solutions? Can we get creative about our thinking? The loop is certainly an inconvenience, and it's challenging to have children walk through there. I get that, but it can be done. But there's organized carpools. Is that a possibility? Can there be a class mother for each class that works to get carpools together? I don't know. I'm throwing it out there. I don't think we're limited in how we can do this.
I am always open to any new ideas for I mean, the overarching picture and the thing that was really eye-opening to me, my first year on the school committee, and we had buses, but my first year on the school committee, there was a gas smell.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, what it ended up being was the trash truck was idling and it was filling the school with gas. But regardless, when I got the call that something was going on at the Fort Banks, my kids were in that school. I ran in there and it was chaos. There were people physically assaulting each other and verbally screaming at each other. It was chaos. Yeah. So God forbid something happens, it will get ugly.
Well, the road behind the school is open for emergency use. That is true.
Sort of. We have the right to do it, right? But nothing was ever done with it. But yes, you're correct.
No, I mean for emergency. It's available for emergency use. Should there be an emergency?
Do you mean the one that goes
the access road?
If you're coming out of the front door, if you're coming out of the door of the banks on the side that goes towards the parking lot, you take a right and it's the fence towards Golden Drive, or are you talking about the one that goes behind DPW?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. Did they pave that and open it, or is it just plotted and planned and ready to go?
I might be wrong, but I know one of those roads is available for emergency access. I don't know which one. I'm a little confused as I'm geographically challenged, so we'll go with that.
There's one that when Peter Gill was council president, the one he deemed the one going into Golden Drive, because there is a gate there, in
Yeah.
fairness. But there's usually always cars parked there, and when it
Yep.
snows, that's where they plow the snow. Just saying.
Yeah. I get it.
So I have one more question. We have Jim Letary in the wings. He's been waiting patiently, but
Okay.
I think Jim understands that you lost some time at the beginning of the show, and I promised to give you that time.
Yeah.
Because
No
a good
problem.
producer does that.
Can we just address the question that the Facebook user has asked here? It's another long one that may not fit.
She likes him.
Only because I have actually some intel around this, and
All right.
understanding the safety and equity. The safety and traffic concerns with the Gorman Fort Banks, and we've been looking for crossing guards for a while. We don't not have them for a lack of trying. In fact, we've engaged with a third party. It was mentioned at the school committee meeting last night during the superintendent's update that we are working with a third party safety security company to come in and analyze the hot spots. And, we could actually also potentially contract crossing guards through this company. So we're looking at other ways to address the safety issues. I just wanted to share that.
All right.
You had one more question, Scott?
Well, I think you know what's coming. I asked the question.
I don't know. I'm afraid
candidates.
it's either masks or CRT.
Ding, 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 ding. Todd is the mask guy. I'm the CRT guy.
Okay.
What's your take on CRT? Again, it's not taught in schools, but it's woven and injected into curriculum. It's an alternate universe as far as I'm concerned, but
talking about the theory of it has no place in K through 12 schools. They're advanced theories that children aren't able to comprehend, nor should they have to. I believe in teaching children history, the good, the bad. I think perspective is important. I think teaching children to learn about history and understand, both sides of stories. That understanding perspective is going to make children better at everything they do in life.
Well, one of your opponents, Suzanne Leonard, last night stated, we could teach history or we could teach the real history. So that is a lot in that one sentence. That says a lot about how she thinks about it.
I think we should teach history, the good and the bad. I think
which they do.
Right. I'm not.
Okay, we didn't know Columbus was a murderer until 15 years ago. It's a tough thing. I think, and similar to what Suzanne said yesterday, I'm interested in building good citizens. I want us to teach children perspective. I want us to teach children history, the good and the bad. I want them to be empowered to want to learn. I want them to be encouraged to do better than the generation before them. And I want them to, grow up to be good citizens, critical thinkers themselves, I think that's so important. Like I said last night, and Todd asked the question, which one do you pick? And I referenced the Irish. The Irish were treated horribly in England. They came over here to start a new life and got treated even worse.
Yeah.
So why would you choose the black culture over the Irish culture? And then you had the Italians saying, well, what about us? And then the Chinese saying, what about us? So for critical race theory, the focus is just on the black race. It's not fair to teach that in the schools or even try to bring it to the forefront or rise it above, unless you're going to bring us all up. Because my people never owned slaves, by the way. My people were slaves over in Ireland.
Yeah, I think at its core, critical race theory teaches that race determines everything about you, and you're either born oppressed or as an oppressor, and that
based on the color of your skin,
based on your race, and I don't think that-that's what we should be telling our children.
Very good.
That's as far as history goes, when I was in high school, I took an entire class about the Holocaust. It was a full year class about the Holocaust. We learned about that. I don't know how it's woven into history today, but that's an example of a very bad part of history that is teachable.
And I'd argue if there's a group that needs to have their history taught a bit more truthfully and emphatically about how poorly I would argue the Jews have been treated worse than any group ever in the history of the world, given that they've been thrown out of every country that they've ever tried to call
Yeah, I
home.
mean, I think there's genocides happening all over the world, unfortunately, and some, we don't see, they're not in front of us, but it's
The
happening
ones
everywhere.
the ones we see, I would say.
Yeah.
'Cause
As
you're
far
right,
as
there
again,
are.
American history, though, as far as what we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But all right, well, I completed my questions. Todd, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. I'm good. This has been a good use of time. Julie, you did very well.
Excellent.
Thank you for coming on.
I appreciate you having me. I really was looking forward to just having a conversation versus a timed intro.
We tell you to come back on again, but it's election night, and we're gonna have the chief Monday night, and so next Tuesday's election night. So we don't want to bring you back on tomorrow. You'll bore everybody.
Yeah, and I do 4 live streams a week, and I don't want to be doing 7 live streams a week.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I love doing them, but I don't want to do one every night.
Yep, yeah. I hear that. Well, hey, tell Jim I'm sorry I took some of his time.
I'm sure he understands. Jim's a nice guy.
Yes,
sure
he
Jim's
is
a nice guy. I'm sure he'll understand. So, Julie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck. Good luck.
I appreciate it.
And we look for, if you ever want to come back on the show, and we've said this to all the people, if you ever want to come on, you have anything to say, anything you want to talk about, just get in touch with Todd or I. You have my email address now.
Thank you.
And feel free to come back on. And hopefully we're bringing you on as a newly elected or reelected.
A reelected. Yeah.
That's I mean newly reelected school committee member. All right, Julie, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jules.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. So without further ado, let's jump right back into this. Let's bring on Jim Lettieri.
Hey.
Well, first of all, let me get Julie's name down so we don't.
Julie, you've lost your hair.
Yeah, there we go. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing well. I enjoyed listening to Julie. She did a fantastic job.
Great interview. Great interview.
She's good.
Todd didn't get triggered once.
Nope. You don't poke the bear. You don't get the trigger.
Okay. Yeah. Good interview. And again, apologize for the delay, but I did promise her a little more time since the beginning of the show was a little messed up.
No, that's fine. And I will say in advance, when I was in the waiting room, my power went out. So
I saw
with this little
that
nor'easter we're having, I hope it doesn't happen again. But happy to be here.
You got something going on up there weather-wise?
Oh, yeah. We're getting 55, 60-mile-an-hour winds right now.
Oh, it's 70 down here.
Shut up.
It's a nice night. I might go swimming after the show.
He's awful. Just a mean man.
Yeah. Well, again, Jim, welcome back to the show. Since the last time we talked, there's been a lot going on with your opponent. And we did bring up, I think you know already, I'm sure if you don't watch, you find out pretty fast what's discussed on this show the next day. You probably don't even have to watch it because somebody's going to call you and tell you about it. It's almost a guarantee. And I know that all the way down at Boca Raton. So you got mysteriously cut off during your speech on Candidates Night.
Yes, during the forum down at the PSA hall.
Yeah, mysteriously there was a power loss by the man that's friends with your opponent. I just pieced it together as my law enforcement brain, 32 years. I just see things for what they are. But, I think we beat that horse already. And so do you want to touch on that? Do you want to mention what you were going to say? Or
well, I've had the opportunity since with the candidate's message on WCAT to go over that once again. I think the thing that was most disappointing to me, as much as it seems to be a very strange coincidence that it happened at that exact time for that exact period of time. But the unfortunate thing is, due to that, it wasn't able to be aired. And I honestly do think WCAT did the right thing.
Because, they did.
It was obviously edited out, and that's unfortunate. But the real unfortunate, I mean, the fortunate thing was I was able to get my thoughts through on the candidate's message, which is on WCAT, I think daily, and also on YouTube at WCAT Winthrop. But the unfortunate piece is there were 13 other candidates there that also had the opportunity to speak, that they were deprived of that because their 2 minutes was not able to be shown. So, you know, that's one of the truly unfortunate things about the whole incident. You know, it's too bad. You know, it was a good forum. They gave an opportunity for people to speak and answer a couple of questions. And unfortunately, except for the people that were there, you know, it is on YouTube now, but it didn't get the attention it should have received
around the town. Because you don't know how many people. Our generation doesn't really go to YouTube that much.
Yeah.
But when I saw that happen, I was very adamant that video does not get played. I was on CAT. I was very adamant, and Todd and I kind of had a disagreement on it. He had his opinion on it. I had my opinion. I don't think a political video in any way, shape, or form should have a disclaimer. It shouldn't have a filler. It shouldn't, because then you set a precedent from that point on of any candidate being able to just say, "Oh, well, let me give a disclaimer or let me give my statement at the end." No, it has to be complete, start to finish. And that wasn't, and WCAT showed a lot of integrity that they didn't bend the knee to whoever was pushing it. And Paul Caruccio, I feel bad. He put a lot of work into that night. I did. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for the candidates. I felt bad for you because that was a shot. That was a cheap shot, if you ask me. It was a grasp at straws, which backfired, because I hope most of the town knows that happened and why it didn't get played. But like you said, I think WCAT showed a lot of integrity not playing that video. And unfortunately, collateral damage for the other candidates and yourself.
It's unfortunate, and it's unfortunate for Paul Caruccio, who tried to do the right thing and put on a really good event. I mean, Cheryl Van Darker was there, and she did a great job on her role as moderator. And it's just, it's too bad that, trying to do the right thing and it negatively affected a lot of people. So, but you move on, right?
Yeah. And we have. So this is your time. Do you have anything? Well, first of all, you know what? I'm just going to do this. So,
oh boy.
Yeah.
Seatbelt.
So your opponent, and you can sit there uncomfortably if you want, Jim, but I'm going to bring some things up. Your opponent, Phil Boncory, I put a list together. And this list is only since, when did the flag issue start?
Oh, good God. It was warm out. It was what, May?
August? No,
I don't think it was that late. It was in the springtime.
It was in the springtime.
Yeah.
So this is just in what, half a year, right?
Within 6 months, 7 months.
Within 6 months. So in 6 months, this guy, and I know this happened around January. So, because he allowed Tracy Honan time at a town council meeting to spew a personal, liberal, progressive statement about January 6th that was full of non-truths, but has denied others, you being one of them, from making personal statements at a town council meeting. That wasn't it. And that's bad enough. That's bad enough. Then he flew the pride flag over town hall, which was against the town manager's flag policy. He was the reason the town manager resigned, costing the Winthrop taxpayers upwards of $130,000. This is Phil Boncory in office. Of $130,000 in a settlement for somebody to resign.
That's great.
Has an interim in every position below him. Why is that? There's an interim in every position below this guy. Because people are bailing on him? I don't know. And posted campaign signs that were larger than the town charter allowed, and he knew it because he's run for that office. He's been running for town councilor every 4 years?
Yes.
2.
Yeah.
No. Oh yeah, counselor. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy is just, if you ask me, he's a walking disaster. And if I was going to say it, I would vote for Jim. Yeah, I'm biased on this show, on this particular topic. So,
Well,
That's my 2
unfortunately, we
cents.
don't allow Florida residents to vote in Winthrop. But you know what?
But the
This
show
time
has a
it's
little
more
bit of
about,
influence now.
it
So
does, but it's more about why I am good for the job and not necessarily why Phil isn't the right candidate. You know, everything that's been done is out there. You know, to rehash it is just going over it again, and I think it's important that we look at the future and see what's best for Winthrop, and to have proper leadership in there that's going to do the right things and get things done, and not have us, you know, stagnant as we've been. We have to move forward. We have to take care of what we've done. And there's been some good things that have happened in Winthrop over the past few years with the high school, the Miller Field project, the tennis courts, the Center Business District. As frustrating as it is at times, it's something that needed to be done and will look beautiful. But again, like everything else, we have to then maintain it and make sure it doesn't go back to a deteriorated state. So, you know, there are good things that have happened, but there are many things that haven't happened. And I know, you know, the middle school obviously is one that's been sitting there for 6 years now. And, you know, I don't think anything's been done really of substance in the last 2 years. We've had some zoning go through, but that's basically it. The building looks the same.
paperwork.
It's the same.
No. They're treating it for VARM and you know other.
Yeah,
other
yeah. You have the
infestations.
they are keeping the landscaping up on it, and they are bringing in exterminators to go in there.
No,
So Phil's doing something. Didn't he? Wasn't part of his campaign when he ran for town council president, and wasn't part of his campaign. He was going to put the shovel in the dirt, and we're going to take care of that middle school.
Yeah, I think he had two goals, and it was to get the middle school going and to get the access road at Fort Banks going, and I really haven't seen much action on either one.
Yeah,
Jim, I watched your video, by the way, and I do want to ask, because I think you and I agree on schools are the most important really thing in Winthrop. However, you know, we have other departments that need funding, the DPW being one of them. But you made I can't quote you because I don't remember what you said, but you pretty much said it almost sounded like you're going to give the schools, if you were council president, you would move and work to give the schools all the money they wanted.
Well, I think I said that I would work to make sure they had proper funding to make sure that the students could compete with kids around the state and around the country.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Come on.
I mean, I think Julie earlier
Give me
touched
some color.
on the school budget and the issues that they have to deal with. Now, there has been some COVID money out there. I mean, for lack of a better term, COVID money, which the schools received approximately 1.4 million. And it is pretty restrictive as to what you can use it for. And you don't want to use it for anything that's going to be a reoccurring expense, because when that money's gone, now you have to fund it or you have to eliminate what you've done. So, you know, I think they've done a pretty good job. I mean, Julie talked about level servicing, which is accurate. And it's, you know, it's a lot of money every year just to be level serviced is upwards of 1.3 million. So, you know, there are a lot of obstacles in the way of keeping things forward. But you know, this year they were able to survive and do a really good job with very limited funding. Even, you know, $600,000 isn't a drop in the bucket, but it's much less than what they required for level service. And they've been fortunate to have some money. And again, Julie mentioned this also, that money can be used for an extended period of time going into fiscal 24. So, you know, there are some good things that can happen with the schools, but, you know, there's funding shortages throughout the town. You know, I also mentioned about trying to do a parks department too, to maintain the assets that we do have. I mean, we all want to move forward, but we have to have plans in place to protect what we do have and all the things that we have been able to do over the last 20 years with three new schools, along with the facility down at Miller Field and in the center and such.
Did we ask you, Jim, do you have any aspirations or thoughts for the middle school project?
I mean, yeah, I think everybody has their personal thoughts, but I think, you know, they've been discussed over the last 5 years ad nauseum. You know, I think what it comes down to, I think the one thing, and I said this in my message on CAT, the one thing that it seems that pretty much universally throughout the town, we can agree that there needs to be a rink at that site. And the slogan "Winthrop would never be without a rink," has a lot of meaning to a lot of people. And so I think that seems to be the one constant. Personally, I don't want to see a huge development in terms of, hundreds, not hundreds, but 100 or 150 units. I think there's another location in town that's probably more adaptable to a bigger complex like that. But I think the best way for this town to grow is by relatively smaller projects. I think if we were able to, for example, people talk about a public safety building, location to be determined, I guess, but people have talked about that and, what that can do for the town in terms of the facilities that we are using now for public safety. I think it's important when we talk about middle school that we look at, and I said this in my message also, that we have to look at what we're trying to get out of it as a town. Is it just money? Is that all we're looking for, to increase revenue so we can give, more money to the schools or more money to public safety or to DBW or wherever it happens to go? But there's a cost of everything you do. You can't just look at revenues and say, okay, we're going to build 100 units and that's going to bring in $450,000. So now we're in good shape, because there's a cost to that $450,000, whether it be that we're going to need an extra 1 or 2 policemen or an extra 1 or 2 firemen, or it's going to bring in, 15 or 20 additional children into the system. There's a lot of cost for that $450,000. So I think in some respects, you got to think outside the box. The cost of a public safety building is that's something that the town has to decide. That's not a council decision to build or not to build. It's the town to decide. But I think that's something that's been discussed for such a long period of time. And you have to see if there's an appetite out there to do that. But you look and say, just like the Northeast Vocational School, it's hard to argue that there's not a need for that school or for the fire station or police station or public safety in general. There's not much argue that there's a need. I mean, the fire station on Pauline Street was built in 1890 something. That was long before all of us. And I mean, it was built for horse and buggy. It was not built for engines or anything of the kind. So, to say we don't need it is a misstatement. I mean, the need is there. The question is, how do we pay for it, and if people are willing to pay for it? And those are things we have to find out. But we can't go on another 5 years with the middle school the way it is. But I think there's, the obvious thing is mixed use development. I get concerned about a lot of mixed use in terms of commercial businesses, because there are so many empty storefronts now. You don't want to impose more pressures on some of the small businesses that are there. But I think you need to look at ancillary things like whatever's there. Is it going to have an impact on the local economy in terms of business, in terms of taxes? But we have to find out what we want out of this. And that's something that's never really been in the question. It's always been, oh, we need revenue, but nobody's ever talked about the cost that those revenues can produce. And there's a lot to say about that.
My brother was telling me about a small town in Canada that built like a hotel with a hockey rink. It was like a hockey complex, right? Mm-hmm. They had a hotel. And in one tournament, they pulled in like $1 million for one tournament. Just people, teams coming in from all over. If you did that in Winthrop, you'd generate revenue. You would generate, it would probably be a blockbuster. But I don't live there, so it's none of my business.
I think you're right, Scott. And Jim, you and I have spoken about this, I believe, right? Because people fly all over for these hockey tournaments. We are geographically desirable to Logan. You build another rink or two if we could fit it, and you have a boutique hotel there, or even like one of those Courtyard Marriott type hotels. You could raise a lot of revenue. Those things will be booked.
And it would generate revenue to probably every store in town also,
But someone also mentioned, though, Jim, I don't know if you've heard this, keeping it a school and making it basically moving the fort and turning the fort into the public safety building. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think, when you talk about it, it kind of quickly, if you just think about it, it's like, wow, it solves two problems. It gives us something to do with the space, and it alleviates a problem with the loop and everything else down at Fort Banks. The problem with that is the cost, because now you're looking at going to the MSBA, going back to the well for a fourth time. We've been extremely fortunate with the MSBA that they funded 3 projects for us. The Fort Banks School, which was just paid off literally this year, was built about just over 20 years ago and cost us roughly, I think it was $17 million for that school, compared to the middle high school, which cost us $82 million, compared to the vocational school, which they want to build in 2 years, which is at a cost of $317 million. So the cost of construction is crazy right now. And to go back to the MSBA, I'm not sure if they would approve it. The other thing that would potentially do, obviously not potentially, it would be to delay this, even longer, because now you have to do a feasibility study, go through the MSBA, go through the whole process, and it's at least a 2-year process. So now you have to look to see if you'll get approval. Now, even without approval, it can be done, but now the taxpayers are footing the whole bill. And then you have, the thought was, I think what I've heard is that the Fort Banks could then potentially be turned into a public safety building or retrofitted. And there's a cost to do that, even though it's a beautiful, relatively new building. I'm sure there's a huge cost to converting that into a space like that. So, I think on the surface, it's like, wow, it checks a lot of boxes as to what it can fit, what it can help for us. But I think there's too many problems for that to really happen.
Interesting.
All right. You got anything else, Todd?
No, I'm good. Jim, do you got anything else?
No, I really appreciate you guys giving me the time to come back again, and look forward to hopefully seeing you in the future, and maybe as the council president elect after next week. So, I do ask people out there for support, and and I've said this a lot of times, regardless of who you vote for, I want you to vote informed. And if you look at all the issues and look at everything that's happened over the last handful of months and think my opponent's the right choice, then, I respect that if you really did your issues and looked at it. But I really think that if you look at the issues, look at what's best for Winthrop, look at the leadership that I could bring, the financial knowledge I have, the integrity and character that I really feel I possess, I think I'm the right person for the job. And I appreciate the forum here to talk to you guys. And, I hope when people go into that ballot to vote on November 2nd, that they vote for Jim Lettieri.
It's funny. I just got a text message from somebody saying, the last question you want to ask Jim is, what would you like the voters of Winthrop to know about Jim Lettieri?
I think you said it.
Well, exactly what Todd just said. I just
right
said
as you were answering that, I think.
I think character is a huge talking point in any election, and I think I bring that to the table. I mean, I am as easily accessible as anyone in this town. I very rarely leave the town during any day. And people know where I am, and they know how to get a hold of me, and I always respond, whether it be a phone message, a text message, or an email. Experience in and of itself, I've said, just means someone's been doing something for a long period of time. But I think proven experience, along with the knowledge and the leadership skills I have, make me the right candidate at the right time for this position. I've put in my dues. I've paid my time. I've done a lot of good for this town, and I don't regret a minute of it. Like I said in my WCAT message, but I just look forward to putting more time and more effort into helping this town move forward, where we've been stagnant for too long, and it's really time for us to go forward.
All right.
Well,
we get somebody might have said something else. What happens with the capital funds that we're paying off at Fort Banks? Does it have to stay in the capital funding, or does it go to the school?
No, it was a
debt exclusion.
There was a debt exclusion that was passed 20 years ago. So again, I think the project was $17 million. I think we ended up the town's portion ended up being 9 or 10 million. It's amazing how, not that that's not a ton of money, but it's crazy how things have changed over 20 years. So that was on part of the tax rolls actually. And it was a relatively small part. Like the new middle senior high school on average increased the average taxpayer's bill somewhere between $575 and $600 a year. Back when the Fort Banks was due, it was $95 to $110 a year. Still a good chunk of money, but that money now will come off the tax roll. So technically, your tax bill goes down that $110, then go up 2.5%. So the net will still be an increase, but it will be less of an increase. So it's not money that's in a bank or anything. It's money that was borrowed, and the town paid it off, and the town made their last payment January 30th of fiscal 21.
All right.
All right, Jimmy.
Well, again, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, good luck Tuesday.
I think you will. I think
Thank you. Take care, guys. Have a great night.
All right, Jim. Thanks, buddy.
Yep,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, that was a double header. Squeezing them all in, buddy.
Yeah, so Monday night we probably should ask the chief and the acting town manager some election questions if he's game.
Well, we'll see how that goes.
Yes, we will. I'm excited.
All right, you want to take us out?
Didn't we already go out? Oh, we're still going.
We're still live. Yeah,
we're still live. Yeah, I'll take us out. Hey, guys, we're still live. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Have a great night. Another great interview with another good candidate. Hope you guys are getting a lot out of it. Remember, all politics starts and stops at the local level.
Two good candidates.
Two good candidates.
All right. See you Monday night. Chief Delahanty will be on.
Peace out.